Welcome to Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management by Dynasty Financial Partners and hosted by CEO Shirl Penney.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management. I'm your host, Shirl Penney, founder and CEO of Dynasty Financial Partners, and I'm really excited about this episode of Around the Track because I'm joined by a longtime friend and business partner at Dynasty, Brendan Bell. Brendan, thank you so much for sitting down and having this conversation.
Thanks for having me, Shirl. We were joking, before the episode. I can remember 5-6 years ago when we started filming videos together. I started filming videos of you. It was just me behind the camera pretending to know what I'm doing, and now we've got a set and professionals and multiple cameras and lights, and so excited to be here. We've come a long way, and honored to be a guest now.
I think this is probably directionally maybe the 50th episode, so it has come a long way since you just taped it on your phone. So look, with that as a segue, you clearly know the rules, or the rule, since you helped me create it, which is we're going to try to make our way around the virtual track together in less than 15 minutes. And speaking of the virtual track, the track that is depicted, as you know, is my backyard in Saratoga Springs. I'm sure that you probably, since you're from Saratoga Springs, have actually walked on that track.
I have indeed been there many times. Was just up they ran the Belmont there this year, as you know, which is atypical, but was really cool to see Saratoga come to life in June rather than in July and August like it typically does. So.
Yeah, I know we both agree it's a special place. All right,
it certainly is.
Here we go. Let's break from the gate strong. Give you a nice softball to do so. Tell the audience about yourself, both
sure,
personally and professionally.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I grew up in upstate New York in Saratoga Springs. So we share that connection. I like to say that I'm a great mix of both my parents. I'm fortunate that I was not too much of either one. My father was an equine veterinarian turned marketing executive, so I, from him, got a nice mix of left brain and right brain. And my mother is 10 times more intelligent than my father and is a much better people person. So I was fortunate that I was able to get those skills and different strengths from both of them. I moved down here to St. Pete from New York in 2019. I like to brag that I was the first Dynasty employee to move down, sat in the temporary space here for about a month before the rest of the folks started to move down. You obviously had your apartment down here, but had to be moving back and forth.
Yeah.
I like to say that I don't have children yet, but I do have a 130-pound Rhodesian Ridgeback named Obi that keeps me busy.
Yes.
Lastly, on my on the personal front, I like to call myself a reformed introvert. When I first joined Dynasty, I can recall one of the interviews I had with you, which I think was actually for the Chief of Staff role, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. I somewhat in a silly way told you I didn't like talking to people. And that was my manifestation of being an introvert, and you ripped that out of me pretty quickly, kind of putting me in
yes.
As the tip of the spear in most every meeting that you
yes.
had. So thank you for doing that.
I remember purposely showing up 5 minutes late to many meetings.
5 minutes means an hour sometimes. So yeah, but I do appreciate it.
All right, and how I originally met your dad, which I think you know this story. I was out playing golf with one of my daughters, and he was out playing golf with one of your sisters, one of his daughters, and we said, "Hey, this is really cool that we're out here doing this. Let's do it together." And we built a great friendship, and through that, he introduced me to you. So that's great. So look, we all have our own unique path into this industry. I think you took quite a different path than most within the financial services. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Dynasty. I just crossed the 7-year mark in May of this year. So somewhat astonishing. But as I think back 7 and more so 8 years ago, as I was thinking about making a transition in my career and really starting my career, I was in a academic environment. I was in a graduate program for biomedical engineering, which is definitely not a natural stomping ground to move into finance. But really, what that environment taught me was I was really around really smart people, but they were people that weren't doing what I saw myself doing in my career. And long story short, I realized that I wanted to move out of that environment, more into an environment where I was learning from entrepreneurs and business builders and executors of ideas, not just those kind of researching them and working in the background. And so I was on a quest to really find a first opportunity in business or finance I candidly didn't know. I joke that at the time, 7 years ago, I didn't know the difference between wealth management, asset management, investment banking. I just knew it was an industry in which I could learn a lot, and I was looking for opportunities to, to kind of pave my path in that industry. You mentioned the relationship we have on the personal side. Quick funny story. I can remember it very clearly. I'm driving down to Manhattan from upstate New York, from Saratoga Springs, in a U-Haul truck, as I've told you this story, and I'm in work jeans, work boots, and a T-shirt, and I'm with my father, who happens to purchase antiques from auction. So we're on our way down to an auction house to pick up antiques, and as fathers do, he says, "Hey, we're going to make a quick pit stop before we go to Christie's and stop in Midtown to see this guy Shirl Penney that I met on the golf course." And I'm hemming and hawing, and you know how it would have gone. But was very fortunate that it was that 15-minute meeting with you and your team at that time that opened my eyes to, wow, I don't know what this business is doing yet, but they're really, really talented, engaged folks that I'm sure I could learn a lot from. So the rest is kind of history from there.
Well, and the flip side of that story, your dad called and said, "I'm about to do you a huge favor." And I said, "Well, what's that?" He goes, "I'm about to introduce you to my son." And I said, "Great, when?" He said, "We'll be there in about 30 minutes. We're pulling into the city." So, I remember you coming in your work clothes, and we had a great conversation. And to a certain extent, the rest is history. So, part of that history, let me just ask you a question about Chief of Staff, because I know it's something that you're passionate about, and various industry events that I speak at, I give advice to senior executives: get yourself a Chief of Staff, right? There's so much leverage that you can get as an executive, and the flip side, there's so much learning that you can give to a young professional that can then allow them to move on and declare their major within the organization. But having been really my longest standing, I don't think I ever had a Chief of Staff for 5 years other than you, and had a number of great ones. And current Chief of Staff, Jeremy Gilbert, also had a different path to financial services as a former Army Ranger. But from your seat, what would you say to a senior executive who's thinking about picking up a Chief of Staff? And what would you say to a young, very talented professional who's thinking about becoming a Chief of Staff?
Yeah. Well, firstly, you mentioned the past Chiefs of Staff. I'll say I'm extremely fortunate and grateful to the prior Dynasty Chiefs of Staff that have kind of paved the way and really turned it into a role that has enormous upside potential at Dynasty. And that's not unique to Dynasty, but Dynasty definitely pays a special attention to that role. So, firstly, to a peer, I'd say, speaking from experience as someone that came completely outside of this industry, I don't think there's a better first growth opportunity. And growth means a lot of things. I think, a lot of folks see the benefits of the Chief of Staff role to the person that's in it. I think they maybe don't see a lot of the grind and hard work and stretches that need to happen in the background to make that person successful. But they make you better, and they make you a more potent partner inside of the business. They make you more potent strategic thinker, more potent communicator. So I would say, if you are considering that role as a young, talented professional, give it a real hard swing if it's something that you think you could be a good fit for. I think it will catapult you, certainly in your learnings and your growth. Yeah. And if you are focused and talented, it will catapult you in the roles you're able to take on after the role. But I'd say, on the flip side, be really introspective and thoughtful about, can you do the role and do you want the role? Because it's not for the faint of heart, I would say. To an executive, I would say it's a role that can provide you enormous leverage. I mean, I like to think that I didn't actually help you be in two places at once, but I think we got pretty close. Yeah. And I think there's very few other roles that can do that. I was fortunate in part of my role, during part of my tenure, to have the support of an executive assistant on your office of the CEO team as well, which can provide inordinate leverage too. And when you pair those two roles, I think you're able to, unlock new hours in the day for the executive that those two folks are supporting. And, really what I think a Chief of Staff can do to a org chart is, it can either take the place of, a chief operating officer that maybe the business doesn't need yet, or really is not at the growth stage to substantiate, paying for someone at that tenure in their career. And really, you just need someone that can connect dots within the organization and, again, give leverage to the executive. Or it can make your entire leadership team more powerful, because you now have this conduit between all the different leaders in the organization that has full context for the business and can make things happen in the background.
Awesome. All right. So speaking of connecting the dots, Dynasty, one of the many things we're really proud of is we have a history of innovation, right? So our primary business, we started the business, so integrated wealth technology business. Then our clients asked us to build a TAMP, an investment platform that could help them implement on behalf of their clients. Then they wanted us to build a robust industry-specific investment bank and capital business. And more recently, they've really asked us to help them kind of build not just an outsourced back office, which is the legacy of the business, but now help build an outsourced front office. And that's really what Dynasty Connect is. And for you, transitioning from chief of staff to now running our newest business line, Dynasty Connect, I'm sure is really exciting. Take a moment and tell us about Dynasty Connect.
Yeah, and thank you. I think that term outsourced front office is a great way to kind of crystallize it. As I think about, as you described, Dynasty's offering to our advisors to date, we've done amazing things to help our advisors gain efficiency and scale in the middle and back office, all towards the end of growing faster, driving more profitability to the bottom line, being able to spend more time doing what they want to do inside of the business. But we hadn't taken a very direct, active role in finding new growth opportunities for them directly. And I think what we're doing with Dynasty
Organic
Connect,
growth
opportunities, correct. We'd certainly done that on the inorganic side. But we weren't out on the field of battle finding new prospects for them and referring them to them. And that's exactly what we're doing with Dynasty Connect. So, our advisors are running large-scaled RIAs for the most part. And they have built businesses that are now not just practices, they're businesses that require the executives and leading advisors inside of them to be pulled in a lot of different directions. And so when you're a $1.5 billion, $2 billion RIA, you're maybe not so focused on doing cold calls or hitting your marketing lists or going to events to meet new prospects. And maybe you're a little more passive in how you grow, but you still want to hit those 10, 15, 20% organic growth targets that you set for yourself every year. And where I think Dynasty can really step in and play a role is to build this scaled outsourced front office where we invest a ton of resources and time and intellectual capital into figuring out what's the best way to find high net worth, ultra high net worth leads to get them to the point of sale and then refer them to our advisors. So all they have to do is show up and do what they do best, which is be great advisors and help people. And just lastly on that note, this is a two-pronged business. It's B2B to our advisors, but it also wants to provide services to the end consumer. And really, we always want to have a lens for what's best for the end client. How do we actually help them find powerful solutions to the financial problems and opportunities that they have? And we think our advisors are some of the best to help them do that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that, Brendan. Look, bias, I know when we say, but would say this, but I think we have some of the finest financial advisors in the industry on our platform, and their ability to deliver what we call triangulation of advice, right? Advice separate from safe custody and separate again from where products are manufactured and sold, I think is an incredible differentiator, and it's an honor to be able to connect people who need that type of advisor with one of those advisors. All right, so you're starting a new business, and that's exciting. It provides opportunity to do a lot of different things. And I know we've talked about strategic partnerships with some institutions, whether it be CPA firms, some law firms, regional banks or trust companies who want to outsource the lead flow. I know you have some other interesting opportunities there that you're working on. Digital advertising campaigns that you've been running. We've launched an ambassador program where people can be an ambassador and refer people in. So got a lot of different lines in the water to kind of see what works. And given your background in the lab, you like to experiment, I'm sure. But looking at all the things you could be focused on right now, what has you most excited about the program?
Yeah, I think you described all the different tenets of what we're working on and all the different lines we have in the water. I think if I were to take a step back and just look at the opportunity more globally, one of the things that has me most excited is that no one solved it yet. There are, meaning no one has solved how do you reliably and with high ROI go out and find high net
At
worth
scale.
at scale?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, you know, RAs are doing it, of course, tactically, they're growing their businesses, but how do you drive, billions of dollars of assets into a community like Dynasty or to any large community or firm of advisors in the network? So the fact that no one has figured it out yet, and there's not blue sky, but there's clear path to, creating a solution for our subset of advisors. As you said, we don't want to be something to everyone, we want to be everything to someone. And we want to build a solution that works for our advisors, and I think we're uniquely situated to do that. So the fact that there are solutions out there, I'd call them lowercase s solutions. No one has figured out the capital S solution yet.
Yeah.
And I think with Dynasty's resources and relationships and network, which I'll talk about in a second, I think we're well situated to do it. You touched on the strategic partnerships. I think with Connect, we have the opportunity not only to strengthen existing strategic partnerships by saying, hey, we already do custody together or we already do reporting together. Now let's work on leads. We have these joint clients of ours, which are advisors. Hey, by the way, if we help them grow, they're going to like us a lot more. So let's work on it collectively and see how we can make 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
Lastly, I touched on it. It's our advisors. The fact that I get to stand on the shoulders of giants, which are some of the best advisors in the industry, and say to the end consumer, my job is to help connect you with a good financial advisor, and actually have, over 400 of the leading financial advisors in the independent space, at my disposal, so to speak, to pair that person up with, makes my job a lot
Yeah.
easier.
It's always great when you can do well by doing good, right? And it feels great. It's one of those moments in time, I think, where it's good for everyone. So I appreciate the way you answered that. Let's pivot a little bit. You mentioned leadership there. You've had a number of mentors, worked in different industries we've talked about. You're now hiring rapidly and building out your team. How would you describe your leadership style? And have you found yourself becoming very, very entrepreneurial, perhaps, since being here?
Yeah, I think, on my leadership style, and I think I learned or I absorbed a lot of this from you sitting next to you for 5-6 years, is to be a teacher first. And, I candidly, I'm still at the stage in my evolution to leader where I'm trying to figure out how and what to delegate. But I'm finding that if I lead with teaching and actually giving someone the tools and the horsepower to do things on their own, that I'm going to be able to amplify my output all the more. So starting with actually teaching my team the underpinnings of what we're working on, not just keeping it surface level, but giving them that extra 30 minutes of, hey, here's why we're doing what we're doing. And then they can, have that light bulb go off in their head for themselves, and then they can go out and be even more effective for me on my team. I think, another thing I learned from you is to always have a sales mindset. We're obviously building a direct, explicit sales business here with Dynasty Connect, but everything that we're doing and every engagement with a consumer, with an advisor, with a resource partner is sales, and we're
Yeah,
trying to
growth.
Sales and growth. Yes, exactly. So how do I teach my team not only to I want my team to fill their own plate and then clear it. I want them to go out and find innovative ways to find new opportunities and fill their own plate with leads, and then find the best way to process those leads and get them to our advisors and get them closed. And then lastly, I think I'm learning, I'm learning as I go, that I need to fail faster and learn faster from those failures. I think, if I'm honest with myself, I can be a bit of a perfectionist sometimes, and overthinker and over-researcher before I dive into something. And I need to get better at, and I'm starting to because of this opportunity, to your point, being more entrepreneurial and learning as I go, to just jump in the water even if it's cold, and I'll figure out how to swim.
I love it. Love the sense of interperspective there. So thanks for sharing it. All right, we're turning for home. Only 2 questions left, 2 furlongs left as we head to the finish line. You said something earlier that struck me, and I totally agree with. Lead generation is hard, right? And that no one has cracked the code, certainly at scale. And we haven't yet either, but we're making some great progress, and we're committed to it, and we're excited about it. maybe I'm going to ask you here to tease a few things out, because obviously I'm not suggesting that you should give away the secret sauce to the extent we're starting to develop it. But what are some things just early on that you have learned that you might share with RIA principals watching this video about how to develop a strategy and a game plan for developing lead flow at scale?
Sure. I'll start with something which you already said in the question, which the advisors already know, which is that it's really hard. And maybe I didn't fully appreciate that when I was taking on the role, because I was not an advisor for 30 years like many of our advisors who did themselves build their books from scratch and were hitting the phones hard when they did that. But finding, identifying, qualifying, nurturing, and closing, folks that are sophisticated, have substantial wealth, and are being sold to in every avenue of their life, from Mercedes to Rolex to every time they walk into the grocery store, and know how to kind of sift through what's real and what's not. They're hard to find, and then they're hard to sell to. So I'd say the point of that is it takes focus and resources and time and innovation to prospect that market successfully at scale. I'd say one of the things I'm learning on just on the marketing perspective and how we're communicating with the end consumer is, I think some advisors go into their sales pitch from the perspective of, you need a holistic financial advisor that's going to do all of these high-level things that you maybe don't really understand, consumer. And what I think we need to do more of is understand the specific, discrete challenges or opportunities that consumers are facing in their lives, truly understand what they are and how they describe them to themselves. And when they're on Google looking for a solution, we need to know what they're looking for, because it's not holistic financial planner. It's, I just got fired, or I just got divorced, or I just got restricted stock that I don't know what to do. It's a life event. It's a catalyst. There's some discrete thing that they need help with, and we need to tailor our language and how we talk about the solutions that we provide to fit that specific need that person has. I was just listening to, I know you listen to TED Talks a lot, I was listening to a TED Talk about the owner of 11 Madison Park, the restaurant in New York City, and he was talking about one of the tenets that made them so successful in their customer experience, telling a story which is much longer than this, but in this five-star restaurant, he ran out down the street to grab a hot dog from a cart and served it to one of his customers, who he overheard saying, "We spent all this time in New York City, we never got a New York hot dog."
Right.
And that was a customer that he had for life. And the point of it was, one size fits one. You can't make a experience for a high consumer by managing to the lowest common denominator and doing things that you think are going to work for all. You need to find those ways to connect with people individually.
Well, good.
I was going to say, on the scale side and doing it, repeatedly and at scale, you need the right systems in place. I think, there's a lot of advisors that are really great at sales, a lot of RIAs that do grow fast, but to unlock that next level, you need the systems from the front end all the way to close to the back end to, billing on those accounts and keeping the relationships happy and growing. And so it starts with your prospecting tools and software, and it leads into really sophisticated and organized CRM systems, and that flows into a really well-documented sales pipeline and client journey that you take someone through all the way to when they close with an advisor. So, and gathering data along the way. You have to have the data inform the next best action of which prospect you're going to call on and what you're going to say to them, and where you're going to take them in the funnel next.
Or you find a great partner like Dynasty and you outsource the front office, right? So, all right, look, last question. You know this because you filmed me ask this question with many of people on this show. What's your triple crown, right? The seemingly unattainable, bold goal that sits out there that you're going to get up every morning and work really hard towards. So for you, Brendan Bell, what would be your triple crown?
Yeah. So I feel like with what we're building at Dynasty Connect at the stage we're at now, we've got a lot of great progress, but we're just scratching the surface. So my triple crown is looking at a year from now. Let's say we have 55 firms in the network today. I want to be able to say that a year from now I am meaningfully contributing to the organic growth and growth in general of a quarter to half of that network of advisory firms, understanding that we're not going to get to full scale as quickly as I want to, but we're going to work as hard as we can to make a meaningful contribution to the growth of a substantial subset of our firms, with an eye towards there's a future state of Dynasty and Dynasty Connect where Dynasty Connect is a growth engine for every single firm that taps into the Dynasty network.
Awesome. Well, look, I am really happy that your dad made that detour and introduced us. You've become a great friend and partner. Thank you so much for sitting down and having this conversation with me.
Thank you, Shirl. Appreciate it.
And thank you to all of you for tuning in to another edition of Around the Track.